You and I both had siblings that died young.
It's true. My youngest brother died at about an hour or 2 hours old. I never met him.
My sister died when she was 8, and so you want to know where'd they go.
Yeah, what happens? This affects so many families.
You know what happens on our end, but what'd she see? What was her next day like? So what we're going to look at today is Emanuel Swedenborg's account of what heaven is like. This is going to, I think, hopefully bring some comfort to people, because it's not just there's a plan, but it's like the perfect plan for kids who die and go to heaven early. Hey everybody, welcome to the Swedenborgian Life podcast. This is Dr. Jonathan Rose here.
Hey Curtis.
I'm Curtis Childs. Today we're talking about kids in heaven, children in the afterlife, where there's a whole chapter in Swedenborg's book, Heaven and Hell, about how does God take care of kids who die young.
I'm so glad that chapter's in there, because it's a thing that affects a lot of people. And there's comforting teachings, and I don't know who else covers this topic. I don't know where you can find out this information, but I love what Swedenborg says about it.
Isn't this the crucial crux of whether or not life is good?
Yes.
Because when people say there can't be a God, how can so many children, die or starve to death, or
right?
How can God allow that? So what happens? What's it like for a kid who dies young? That's really like the litmus test for are we in a good universe or not?
Yeah, that's right.
So we're going to go through the chapter, and there's a ton of different topics, but a lot of it is about like growth and development. And I'd love to hear your insights and thoughts on this. And hopefully all of you will find it fascinating, comforting, inspiring. So thank you for watching this show. If you're not subscribed, most people that watch this are not subscribed. Click the subscribe button. You'll know the next time we put out a show, and we can flood YouTube with uplifting content like this.
That's right.
So beginning point, very important to know. All children who die go to heaven.
It's quite stunning, because the teaching in Swedenborg's day, and I imagine in some areas of the world still, is that only Christian baptized children would go to heaven and the rest wouldn't. And that's part of the incentive to get kids baptized. And Swedenborg said, no, it's 100%.
That's one of the reasons why people don't like religion or don't like Christianity, is they'll say the example, but wait a second, what about somebody who's born on the other side of the world, never had a chance to? So what happens?
Some innocent little kid that, did nothing wrong.
If you just see any baby, it doesn't matter where you are, whose baby it is, you see any baby and you're like, that is so great. That thing is so great. And you just immediately want to like, oop, here, let me get out of the way. We want that thing to be safe and happy and having a great time.
That's right.
Can God not feel the same way?
Yeah, it's
Can
impossible.
God not feel the same way? Do we not get that feeling
just
from
sort
God?
of turning his back on.
These extra, yeah. This is Heaven and Hell 329. Every child who dies, no matter where he or she was born, within the church or outside of it, of devout or irreverent parents, is accepted by the Lord after death, brought up in heaven, taught according to the divine design, and filled with affections for what is good, and through them with direct knowledge of the truth. And then, being continually perfected in intelligence and wisdom, all such individuals are led into heaven and become angels. Anyone who thinks rationally can realize that no one is born for hell. Everyone is born for heaven. We ourselves are to blame if we arrive in hell, but children are not yet liable for any blame.
Yeah, I see. And he never specifies sort of a cutoff age, sort of like in the criminal justice system where he's tried as an adult.
That's right.
I don't know what that age is in there.
But before we start to get to there is a new set of questions, which is like, wait a second, if all children go to heaven, wouldn't it be better if everybody died as a child?
Oh, yeah.
That's
a fundamental question. Yeah.
Before we get to that, just sit for a minute and say, that's how it should be. Every child who dies, doesn't matter what their religious upbringing was. It doesn't matter what kind of parents they had.
You don't get doomed by your parents. I mean, it's a very merciful teaching.
We don't doom our children. Devout or irreverent parents, accepted by the Lord after death, and not just accepted, but brought up in heaven.
Yeah.
Like
Raised in heaven by the best, the sweetest, most loving people.
Taught according to the divine design. So it's just like life continues, and kids are there. They need to be raised. They need to be taught.
Yeah, no shade to parents on earth, but these people in the other world who are taking care of children really understand that divine design. They know how learning takes place. They know all the stage, so they can really cooperate with that whole process.
Right. Okay.
It still, I think, would be preferable. I don't think the Lord ever wants a child to die. I mean, that's a horrible
So it's
thought.
important and everyone's not familiar with Swedenborg's concept of divine providence. So there's the Lord is running all the details of life.
Yeah.
And divine providence does guide everything that happens. However, there's different classes of things that happen.
I love the nuance of that.
Yeah.
Who else says that? But he says that, no, there's things that the Lord really loves and wants. There's other things that he kind of has to put up with, because to violate that the whole thing would collapse. So having to have freedom.
Yep.
There's various different things that you just, it's beyond our comprehension.
At one point, Swedenborg breaks it down as there's things that divine providence wills, there's things that divine providence accepts, and there's things that divine providence tolerates.
Yeah.
So the things that divine providence wills are when everything's in the divine design, which is how things are supposed to be.
That's how it's supposed to go.
And when things are how things are supposed to be is that every person would live to a nice old age and die peacefully and comfortably.
Exactly. That's plan A.
Then anything that deviates from that is, as you, we don't need to get into the problem of evil conversation here, but it's because there's a big complex thing, and the goal is eternity. That the goal is that you should be able to be as happy as you can be forever, and that he needs to get us to where we can go, be as happy as we can be forever.
And I do gradually, as I go through my life, start to trust more and more that divine wisdom knows what it's doing. It may not seem like it, but somehow the system is fair behind the scenes, and it all works out in the long run.
Yeah, so I missed my sister, missed her my whole life, I guess. I don't. It's hard to remember it a lot now, but I'm gonna see her someday, and it's gonna be great. And we're gonna continue on. We'll pick up where we left off.
Fascinating for me to meet my brother. Imagine having a sibling you've never met.
But ultimately, it's that because then, I will be hanging out with her forever. Like there's no ratio between the time we were apart and the time that we were together. So that's what Providence is looking at. It's not like Providence is uncaring though, or is not realizing the things we go through here, but ultimately how it should. I'm just trying to say, like, it's all gonna be okay in the end. God tries to make it okay now. Can't always do it. However, one thing we're seeing, we'll lift up the curtain here and see what seemed like part of the tragedy when a child dies is that they were just starting life. They wanted to get to live more life.
Yeah.
But actually, they keep living right on like the next moment. They're still growing up, and they're still who they are.
They're still children. They're still who they are. Yeah, that's right.
Oh, speaking of that, the next number is about how children are still children in the afterlife. Children who die are still children in the other life. They have the same kind of childlike mind, the same innocence in their ignorance, the same total delicateness. They are only in the rudiments of becoming angels. For children are not angels in being, but only angels in becoming. Actually, everyone who leaves this world stays in the same state of life. A baby is in the state of a baby, a child in the state of a child, an adolescent or adult or senior in the state of an adolescent, an adult, or a senior. However, this state eventually changes.
Yeah, I think that's amazing, because you might think some of these characteristics are just because of your physical body. It's just some arbitrary thing that, okay, you were physically a child in this world, but maybe your spirit is, some people talk about kids as having they're an old soul or that sort of thing. They seem to have this wisdom and so on. But this suggests that the body is just a vehicle for having that spiritual development. And if you only got to 5 years old or 10 or 15, that's it. The video game just goes on from there. That's the level that you're on, and you take it from there. And I think the same thing applies to, it's different to be 30 than it is to be 40 or 50 or 60 or 70. Those are all different stages. And so for all of us, this is really universal teaching that we all just pick right up seamlessly. That's how far we got. And it continues. And that takes it's absolutely tragic when a child dies. It's unimaginably painful and hard. And, but it takes a little of the sting out of it, doesn't it? That it's not that yes, there's certain things you won't experience in this world, but this process was not cut short. You weren't deprived of,
right.
You get to keep going. We all do. Yes. We all do. Yeah.
There was a couple whose son was killed, who had been watching our show and we actually ended up doing an episode with them.
I remember that.
It's called Angels After Terrorism.
Very powerful.
Their son was killed in a terrorist attack. And he was older. I think he was 18 or something. Yeah. But I remember his mom saying that one thing that was powerful to her, really powerful to her about Swedenborg's detailed description of heaven, is that then she could imagine what her son was doing. And could actually, what you wouldn't know his particulars, but does he have a life there? Like, does he go and do things? Does he have a job? Like, does he have friends? Like that knowing that, he's there, just going and doing things. That means a lot. And I think too, with children, they're still them. They're still them, and they're still doing what you think they need to do.
Yeah, one sort of, I think it's kind of an unfortunate byproduct of a concept of reincarnation is that it kind of takes away the idea that different people are separate and unique. That you just cycle around and become somebody else or something.
Right.
I like Swedenborg's idea. No. That was a particular person. They may have had physical problems, they may have had mental, emotional problems, whatever, but that was a particular kind of slice of vessel for the divine.
Yeah.
And that's not going to be thrown out. That will be that same person, only better when you see them again.
Yeah.
And they're not going to cycle around somewhere like, oh, sorry, I missed you. No, I cycle around.
I know a lot of people like the idea of reincarnation. I can see some things about that. That to me has always been a sticking point. It's like, wait a second. I want to see this person. I want them again,
Right. I personally, I would love to be recycled. Sometimes I devoutly long for that. But
no,
the Lord has a different plan.
We need you to be you. We need you to be you. Okay, so let's talk about what happens right after a child is reawakened. As soon as children are reawakened, which happens immediately after their death.
Immediately?
Yeah, I think that's important too.
Boom.
That
smooth transition.
For all people, that there have been ideas that you wait a long time or you're in some kind of weird
limbo
state.
Or something.
But it's like, it's very human. It's like, no, we're right here for you. Right. And people who have a near-death experience can attest to this. Like,
absolutely.
I'm right here.
Boom. That's right. And people at all ages have near-death experiences, don't they? They're near-death experiences from children and teenagers and young adults and so on.
As soon as children are reawakened, which happens immediately after their death, they are taken to heaven and given to female angels who had loved children tenderly during their physical lives and had loved God as well. Since in this world they had loved all children with a kind of maternal tenderness, they accept these new ones as their own, and the children love their mothers as though this were inborn in them. Each such angel has as many children as her spiritual maternal nature wants. before I get to that, because this is going to get into some weird Swedenborg grand human location, but let's just pause there. I mean, so you've got, they're not just, they're just taken care of by, like, they're in some temple and God is around, and there's a very, very human, although there's somebody who loves them who's going to be their new mom or stepmom, or however you want to put it. This is person's going to care for them, and they're going to receive the same kind of care, obviously from a different person, but with that same one-on-one attention and love. And there's people who specialize in this.
Yeah. And it's wild to think, because in this world, for most people, you go through a child raising phase. Not everybody, has that opportunity or whatever, but you go through a phase of raising children, and then the empty nest, and then you move on with your life. Interesting to think of people who to eternity will be parenting. Like, that's what they love,
I believe it. I know some of those people. Okay, so now let's get a little Swedenborg weird, okay?
Okay, but I already thought that was a little weird, but
no, you ain't seen nothing yet.
Oh, okay.
But I was just saying, it's a very human thing. Like, you wake up right away, there's a person is right there to take care of you. Let's go a little farther into the human thing, because now we're going to talk about the grand human, which is the idea that all of heaven is kind of like one big person.
Such a wild idea.
This was a major insight of Swedenborg's, that the body of Christ, that heaven is like a single person, in that all the different things that need to go on in the body to make it go, those are like all the things that each of us do to make heaven go, or make human society go. So these angels that take care of kids have a place in that body. Okay, that's enough preface. It's still going to sound weird. This heaven can be seen in the forward part of the forehead, directly on the line or radius along which angels look at the Lord. The reason for this location is that children are under the direct care of the Lord. Into them flows the heaven of innocence, which is the third heaven.
So on the gaze, by the forehead, but it's on that line of sight.
Somehow it means right under the focus of God.
Yes. Yeah. Which is a beautiful thought, because it could feel like, some children die in a hospital or in some other situation, but some are just, forgotten kids, are homeless or whatever,
Right.
But they're all held and carried,
Right place, right environment, right people.
Yeah.
It's going to be a tough one to get through.
Yes, it will.
It's going to be a tough show to get through. Okay, and into them flows the heaven of innocence, which is the third heaven. Those are the people that are in heaven that are the closest to the Lord. By the way, children in this world have that heaven of innocence flowing into them. That's they're like they are.
Yes.
Why
right.
Why do babies and little kids have that sphere of innocence? It's because they are open to this deepest part of heaven. It's like makes them who and what they are, and so there's the connection continues. You can think of that heaven as like childhood itself. That's where the innocence from God comes in to the people who are the most innocent, and from there comes into all of us.
What a beautiful quality!
And was in you, still is in you, in your remains
at the deepest core, right? It's like it's in other layers of the tree might have been added on, but that's still the heartwood is in there.
The childhood has a function that it puts this innocence in each one of us. Like, and no matter what kind of childhood you have, there's states of happiness and innocence in there that God stores up deep in your soul, and then those are used throughout your life to steer you and protect you. This is like to keep you on the right path. So that heaven of innocence is imprinted in everybody. So they're there, but they don't stay. They continue to grow and develop like anyone else.
They're still going through a process.
That's right. This is Heaven and Hell 331. The condition of children in the other life is vastly better than that of children in our world, because they are not clothed with an earthly body. Instead, they have an angelic one.
Which does right there make it sound like it's problematic having, physical flesh is, sort of a minus. And yet other things that we'll get to later, Swedenborg says that, no, as we were just saying, no, the ideal is to live a long, full life in this world. That's what was kind of plan A.
Yeah, but when that falls through, the backup is so strong.
Yeah.
That not only are you going to be there, but you're going to be surrounded by love, and also, actually, it's going to be pretty nice. You're going to be in this amazing spiritual body that is free from all the things that plague us here. So they're doing all right. The kids are all right.
And the amazing thing is that your spirit continues. I mean, it's amazing for any of us that this little wispy spirit that we have inside us is just held and cared for by the Lord and carried from one world into the next. And no, you don't blink out or something. You continue to exist and develop and grow.
We have that same kind of spiritual body that's growing right now. Yep. Ours is there. It's developing. It's concrete. Like it's the mind has a form, and that form is the spirit. And
that's right.
The body is a covering that's on us right now, but the spirit is who we really are. And so a child who dies is just making that transition. You could say early, and in other ways you say everything's divine providence. So the Lord is looking to how can you be the happiest you could ever be to eternity?
Yeah.
How can the human race go to the happiest future it can go to? So people go when they need to go. I mean, another way you could look at it, like it's everyone's time is when their time is, So both can be true at the same time.
Yeah.
You don't want to try to say, oh yeah, this is fine. It's like nothing happened. But you also don't want to say, oh, they should have lived longer. You can say both at different times, but there's a little bit of truth in each.
Yeah.
An earthly body is inherently heavy. It does not receive its primary sensations and primary impulses from the inner or spiritual world, but from the outer or natural one. So children in this world learn by practice to walk, to do things, and to talk. Even their senses, such as sight and hearing, are developed by use.
Boy, and you can certainly see that's true, because when little newborn, it's tough for them to focus, and it's tough for them to kind of process the signals that are, it's kind of overwhelming. They don't know at first what they're looking at. And so it's interesting to think about if you took that physical flesh component away, where you have a spiritual body and it's flowing directly in, how are you being affected? It's different. It's just different without the flesh.
Well, it is a great process, but you fine motor skills, you're trying to do something, it's frustrating, you can't get this thing to go into there.
And everybody's body has problems that, I can't, I'm weak, or my arm doesn't do this, or whatever. And you're trying to get your body to do things, get up to speed.
It is different for children in the other life. Because they are spirits, their actions are impelled directly by their inner natures. They walk without practice, and even talk, though at first this is just a matter of general affections, as yet undifferentiated into mental concepts. So they do grow, but it's parallel, but it's different. There's some differences when you're doing that just in the spirit.
There's something kind of instant. I've often thought about us as, it's not a great analogy, but like three-dimensional chess, where it's complicated. We have multiple levels, and it takes a lot of time, 15, 20, 25 years or whatever, to hook up your spirit and your flesh effectively. Often when I'm doing physical exercise, I think about that. In a way, what you're trying to do is to keep working on that connection between your spirit and your flesh. Sometimes even just knowing, where's my elbow right now, or like trying to inhabit this flesh and get it hooked up. So different to not have that flesh component. It sounds like it makes some things smoother, even though this was the design for us to live in this world and have this flesh and do this work.
Yeah, you think about if you're an athlete and you have to keep doing drills. You know what you want to do, but you're trying to get your body hooked up to that will, or like you're learning the violin, you got to keep doing this till. Yeah. But once you get to a certain point, you're a great musician. If anyone didn't know, this guy, man, he can play so many instruments so well. But when I see you, you're no longer like, well, what your will comes through. You had to learn initially, but now it's just your will comes through. That's kind of probably what it's like we was talking about here. However, they are very soon introduced into these latter as well, since their outer natures are in such concord with their inner natures.
Yeah, so it sounds like the process of growing up and being educated is smoother. I still keep holding that this is a compensation. This is the mercy of the Lord.
Right.
It's a compensation. It's not ideal. Otherwise, why not have everybody just live for a few minutes? But then the human race would die out. Like you couldn't sustain it.
We will talk about that a little bit, and we're going to talk later in the episode about how the difference between the nature of people who had died young and got raised in heaven, and
that's right,
those of us who made it to adulthood here in the world. And so more about that soon. But in short, yes, if everybody just died right away, that would be the end of the human race. And also you couldn't form all the different parts of the grand human. You know, to think about the body needs so many different kinds of cells and tissues and organs and membranes, and you need all kinds of people, including plenty of people that went through a full life here in order to make that thing. But also, we don't say it in here, but elsewhere, it was in the last episode we were recording, I think, where it talks about how there needs to be more and more people forever, because that makes heaven this infinite, eternal endeavor. And if it weren't doing that, then it wouldn't be able to fully image the divine, who is always looking at the next thing. So we got to keep it going. That's
right.
Okay, let's look at some details of how kids get taught.
There's more.
Yeah, this is a little more granular. Children in heaven learn to talk from their nurse, which I would assume is the angels that I was talking about before.
Yeah.
Their first speech is only the sound of their affection, which gradually becomes more articulated to the extent that the concepts they are thinking enter in, since such concepts arising from affections make up the whole angelic language. The first things instilled into these affections, which all stem from their innocence, are the kinds of things they see with their eyes that particularly delight them. And since these are from a spiritual origin, aspects of heaven flow into them that serve to open their deeper natures. In this way, they become more perfect every day. Once this first age has been completed, they are taken to another heaven where they are taught by instructors and so on.
Oh, they relook. It's like going from middle school to...
Yeah. So initially, you're just kind of looking around. You're just like sensory observation, and because everything you're looking at is in heaven, it's all meaningful and beautiful, and it's like an education through pictures. And
again, it's so interesting because you'd be looking at things in this world, but some things are sort of junky and messy, or what, I don't know.
Yeah.
In that world, if you would actually see these representations of these heavenly things, rather than something you have to eventually piece together in your mind in this world, it's kind of a direct channel through their senses right into their spirit.
Children are taught especially by images suited to their natures, images that are unbelievably lovely and full of wisdom from within. In this way, there is gradually instilled into them an intelligence that derives its essence from goodness. I may cite at this point 2 examples I have been allowed to see that will serve to suggest the nature of the rest. Because, like, what are you talking about? Images, innocence, wisdom. Okay. At first, so this is like, I guess, in like a class in heaven.
He got to sit in.
At first, the Lord was pictured rising from the tomb. So the Easter story. And along with this, the uniting of his human nature with his divine nature.
Love to see what that looked like.
Well, here's one characteristic of it. This was done in such a wise manner as to surpass all human wisdom. I don't know how you would...
I knew it.
I don't know how you would do something that simple, but obviously Swedenborg was impacted by it. But at the same time, with a childlike innocence. The idea of a tomb was presented, but with the Lord present only so remotely that one could hardly tell that it was the Lord, as though he were far off. This is because there is a sense of death in the notion of a tomb, which they were removing by this means. So it's like we're making sure these are kids, so we're not going to show anything like what's the Easter story, which is the Lord, died and rose again, but we're not going to show anything that's going to feel like death and disturbing. We're just actually showing how this is just about the resurrection. So it's like age-appropriate material.
Yeah, age-appropriate material. And it's useful to me to remember that they had, obviously, drawing and painting and things like that in the 18th century, but they didn't have any photography, film, any kind of digital graphics.
Right.
So it must have been so interesting for Swedenborg to see these things. Nowadays, we're able to do all kinds of things with imagery, but I still don't imagine it's quite as perfect as what you get in the visual aids in the other world. But it still has made a lot of things easier, where if you can just get a picture, it might be a simple math problem or something, but if you can kind of see it,
Yes.
It helps so much.
Visual learners.
Yeah.
It continues. Then something ethereal, something that looked faint and watery, was carefully let into the tomb, referring to the spiritual life represented by baptism.
Whoa,
Again,
so they're really getting serious correspondences tucked.
Right.
I mean, there's nothing in the resurrection itself that has overtly to do with baptism. It's not mentioned in there.
Yeah.
It's so interesting that, we want to get this element in there because it's part of it.
And that is stuff that's recognizable to us, that these like stories of the resurrection, the baptism, those are, and I guess Swedenborg would have been in the Christian portion of heaven for this, but those are using those same kind of tools, but it sounds like they got this, it's next level. Something looked faint and watery was carefully let into the tomb, referring to the spiritual life represented by baptism, again, from a proper distance. So something about this is rated G.
It's not too graphic or too close up or something.
Then I saw a representation of the Lord coming down to the captives and rising with the captives into heaven, presented with incomparable care and reverence. The childlike aspect of this was that little cords were let down, almost invisible, as soft and delicate as possible, which supported the Lord in his ascent. Throughout it all, there was a holy fear lest anything in the images should touch on a matter in which there was not something spiritual and heavenly. It's like puppet strings.
So great. Yeah. They've got some good producers in the other world too. Think about, hey, we don't want anything like that and sneaking in here. And amazing that those little sort of strings, which Swedenborg says was kind of a childlike element of it, that of course the Lord has been divine truth for a while and now is becoming the divine love, was able to go anywhere in the spiritual world that he needs to go. But the fact that they have these this depiction of strings, and it's also interesting because this is not something that's kind of overt in the four Gospels, this idea of the harrowing of hell, or the idea that Jesus goes down, releases the captives. There's some things in the prophets, and there's material in the epistles and so on. But I'm interested that's made the top two, the headliners. The second act will be this, the Lord descending and releasing the captives. It's cool. So very, very religious and spiritual content. But as you say, age adapted and done in a very careful way.
I think of when people will put marionette strings on things in a movie or a video game that don't need to be there. We've done that on this channel. I think at times, like you make it look like it's a little more low tech than it is.
Yes. Because
that's fun and quirky.
That's right.
And he's saying the strings are there because they're childlike.
Yeah.
It makes it fun and like a game.
Right.
That's cool. There were other representations that engaged the children as well. For example, plays suited to the minds of children, through which they were led into awareness of truth and affections for what is good.
Yeah, so kind of goal oriented, not to an obnoxious degree, it sounds like, but it's they have a positive agenda behind this sort of media content or whatever you'd call it.
Yeah, and I know we're all like, okay, screen time, how much a kid, but I will say there's been a couple times that I've been trying to explain to my daughter like some kind of why you should be good, golden rule kind of stuff, and I was pounding away at it, and she's like, yeah, but then she'll say, oh, is it like in some show, some episode when something, and I'm like, yes, it is, and she gets it.
Yeah,
she gets that.
That's right.
Let's continue onward to a scene that Swedenborg got to see of children in heaven in what he calls like a paradisal. Was it paradisal or paradisal?
Paradisal is what I say.
Paradisal. You know when you say paradisal. But it's exciting. I mean, it does make you feel like, man, I want to see all this stuff. That's so exciting that you get to go there and like get. Anyway, this is Heaven and Hell 337. I have also been shown how all these things are instilled, like all these different learning tools we've been seeing, using delightful and charming means that are suited to their natures. I have in fact been allowed to see children clothed most becomingly, with garlands of flowers around their chests glowing with the most charming and heavenly colors, and similar ones around their slender arms. Once I was even allowed to see some children with their nurses in the company of some young women in a paradisal, what did you say? You told me a second ago? Paradisal garden. Not a garden of trees, but one with vaulted arches of something like laurels, making the most intricate doorways with paths offering access inward, and the children themselves dressed with like beauty. When they entered, the flowers over the entrance radiated the most joyous light imaginable. I was pretty recently at a place called Grounds for Sculpture.
Oh, yes.
There's another place called the Curtis Arboretum that's around here. There's Longwood Gardens, which I haven't been to. These are just a few in this area of these places that are these big, giant explorescapes where they've got amazing plantings and tunnels and statues and whatever decks and things. It kind of sounds like that. Like these kids are hanging out in some what would here be the place you'd buy a ticket and go into, and there's all these like go deeper in here. Here's these archways, and it sounds like a fun time.
Yeah, those Swedenborg says that the delights of heaven are like delights of a garden, and I can sort of imagine this really cool place where and you want to explore because now it goes in here, now it goes in there, and you don't know what's coming next. And
it's a less of an organic vibe, but I did go for my first time to to Universal Studios.
Oh,
I've never been to Disney, but it's kind of in that genre. But they design these places, and it's supposed to be like all the different parts of them are fun and interesting and exciting. And when I saw here, like it says, when they entered, the flowers over the entrance radiated the most joyous light imaginable. Like you come in and the flowers light up. It's kind of like these rides you go on. There's all this attention to detail. Yeah. I think in heaven, it's a little more organic because it's using plants and stuff, but also meaning those flowers didn't just light up because somebody designed that place and thought that'd be fun but the light
and there's a little timer and a plug somewhere.
Yes,
or something.
Right.
No,
so
this is an actual
intern has a switch.
Like,
but that's actually
children here, right?
Because these children here who are these embodiments of innocence, the flowers who also have to do with some kind of love and innocence and wisdom and the step toward usefulness. Light comes out of that because that's like the truth, the Lord. It's like real, but that it manifests as this like fun amusement park of heaven. That's like, I like that.
Yeah.
Maybe that's why we try to recreate that kind of stuff in the world.
Yeah, which people have gotten very good at, I think. We were recently down in the Bach Tower Garden in Florida, Central Florida, and it was what a phenomenal, it's just amazing. It's wonderful. These are paradises. I mean, I kind of get what he's talking about with a paradisal garden.
We're trying to design this place so that you will love being in it. And of course, we're trying to charge you for everything while you're there. But there is an element, people got to make a living. But there is an element of we're trying to make this somewhere that is delightful for you to be in, and that heaven is like probably a lot of that. This enabled me to gather what their delights were like and how they were led into the blessings of innocence and thoughtfulness by things charming and delightful, with the Lord constantly instilling blessings by means of these charming and delightful gifts. So what's the best way to get people to learn something? Have it be charming and delightful. And that's what I'm getting here.
That's what I'm getting
The kids
too.
got to learn. They got to differentiate their mental concepts. We were just hearing that. They got to be able to continue to grow and develop. It's like a play-based school, but it is a school, and the way to learn is through charming and delightful.
And I think modern science, Swedenborg says that quite a bit, and modern science is really getting up to speed with that, I would say, of realizing that, obviously, if something's fun, if it makes you laugh, it surprises you, or it gets much more deeply absorbed into your spirit than something that's kind of mildly boring or that you're forced to go through or something.
So whenever you're going through Swedenborg, it's really it's so much about the mind and how the human mind works. He even now when he's trying to pretty much describe external things in the afterlife. This is just what I saw. Yeah. This is how the people act. But he can't help talking about the way the mind is forming and the concepts, getting into psychology.
It's all growth. Yeah, it's all.
He can't stop. So because that's what life is, and I think he was able to see that. Really, the journey into the spiritual world was a journey into the mind, where he was able to see, like, this is how it's all connected. So I'm just saying that because now we're finally gonna. He talked about the children's mental concepts a number of times. Which, how many times do you ever normally talk about the mental concepts of anyone? So here's him maybe giving us a little more direct insight into what's he talking about. By means of communication that is common in the other life, I have been shown what children's concepts are like when they are looking at various objects.
Oh, now that's precious. I mean, don't they have things that they hook up where it can track your eye movements and try to see what you're looking at?
Yeah.
They still can't. I mean, maybe if they put sensors on your skin, they can tell whether you like or you don't like it, or pupil dilation or something, but it's only approximation of what he's talking about here. How cool to be able to actually see what's going on in somebody else's mind when they see something. What concept is forming in their mind? Amazing.
You're getting to see what's it like in your mind, because obviously when there's a little kid playing with these toys, they're seeing them differently than you are.
Yes.
That to you, it's like, this thing is plastic and it's fine. To them, it's something amazing is going on there.
Oh, yes. And Swedenborg talks elsewhere about the fact that little children see everything as alive in a different way. Does that just about
it's about to come up?
Right here we go. Let's do it.
But I think he mentions it in a few places. So
yeah.
It is as though everything were alive. So in the smallest concepts of their thought, there is an inherent life. I gather that children on earth have concepts that are much the same when they are involved in their play, for they do not yet have the kind of reflective thought that grown-ups have about what is inanimate.
Yes. Yeah, that's right. And so you can, when you're in a playful mood, you can say, oh, well, that door really didn't want to stay closed or something,
Right.
And you're attributing characteristics to this just physical, inert object, and yet it's behaving like, I don't want to be closed. I want to be open. And you close it, and then boop, it pops open. You close it again, pops open.
Think about the movie Toy Story, which really ushered in
so great.
the 3D animated feature era that we're now still living in. Yes, it was cool because it was one of the first times you really saw like 3D animation, and wow, this is incredible that they can do this.
Really amazing.
However, it was such a good story. And the story is based around the idea that, like, of course, toys are alive.
Of course they are.
Of course they're alive. Kids know that. You don't have to inform them.
They're sad if you don't play with them anymore.
Yeah.
Right.
Like grown-ups reflect, this thing is not really alive. I know this is but the kids, like, yeah, Of course, it's alive. Everything's alive. Okay, here's a little bit of interesting differentiation. There's actually two kinds of kids in the afterlife. You can make this broad distinction. Children have either a heavenly or a spiritual nature. You can tell the ones of a heavenly nature from the ones of a spiritual nature very clearly. The former, so the heavenly nature, think and talk and act more gently, so that hardly anything is perceptible but something flowing in from a love of what is good, a love for the Lord and for other children. The latter, the spiritual, do not think and talk and act so gently. Instead, there is something like fluttering wings that shows in them in small ways. Then, too, it can be seen in their annoyance, as well as in other things.
Well, wait, you're just saying, yeah, I mean, that makes it very real to me.
Yeah.
Somehow, because you see in this, anybody who teaches, I know your wife teaches, anybody who's working with children, you can see, they have different natures, and some of them are kind of easygoing, and some of them are a little, recalcitrant or, hard to work with or whatever it is. But interesting that he divides it, because for people unfamiliar with Swedenborg, these words of heavenly and spiritual are a huge division, aren't they? Of the whole way that heaven is structured, and it's heavenly has to do with the heart, and spiritual with the lungs, or emotional and cognitive kind of division. And so interesting that he's saying that this is not just something that develops in your adult life, but it's kind of in your DNA or in your nature.
Is it nature or nurture?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Right.
I just like saying that.
Yeah.
But all the grown-ups, I guess here as well as there, but in the afterlife, you have heavenly or spiritual characteristics. There's like you said, there's the inmost heaven is the heavenly heaven, then there's the spiritual heaven, and there's this interplay between the two. I guess I want to say that they need each other.
Yeah.
So the heavenly heaven, or celestial heaven is sometimes translated, is very innocent, very deep, very emotion-centric, very wise. Those are the people who are the most closely connected to God, the most fully open. However, they need to be taught by spiritual people.
Yeah.
Because the heavenly people that's not really their talent.
That's not
for teaching. It's like left brain, sort of right brain people, but
that's right.
Always they need each other. And I think even like this little picture here, while it's funny, the spiritual kids are kind of more rambunctious, but you need those two kinds of people. You need, I can get a little like emotional or something. You need people who like, all right, come on, let's just go. Let's just do this. You need different kinds of music. Like sometimes you need like something just like, all right, let's get going.
Yeah. That's right. And other times maybe the heavenly children are more like that ambient music or something that's just, like a mood going on, and it's not as punctuated. There's no drums. There's no, it's just this sweet love. That's what I picture when they're very sweet and loving
and the
children.
Spiritual go people need to get chilled out. A little bit.
And they're a little huffy if things don't go their way or whatever.
So it's just funny that there's that, right? It's the difference between your mind and your feelings, your heart and your mind.
Yeah.
Continuing, Heaven and Hell 340. Children are with the angels, but they themselves are not angels yet.
Oh,
by the way, I guess it's implied in that sentence. So yet meaning you grow into an angel.
They will become one.
The women who we talked about before, who had been people on this earth, loved children when they were here. They are now angels who love children there.
That's right.
It's just
That's
another way to say.
That's an important detail that comes into this in many of our shows.
But it doesn't mean an angel is not just synonymous with person who's in the afterlife.
No, that's right. There is kind of this simple idea that, they died, they're an angel now, Yeah. And Swedenborg's kind of, they're with the angels, and they will become an angel.
Right.
But that's developmental too.
So
that's not just a given. You don't get there just by physically dying. There's other steps involved.
For adults, Swedenborg will call people who first crossed over spirits. They're not angels yet. They're spirits.
That's right.
And
yeah,
then,
same with adults, right? That's how it is.
as you go through these different processes, you get to the point where you can become an angel. But that again, it's like, the difference between adolescent, young adult, old age. Like that's a phase that you go into. So children are there. They're among the angels. They're not angels yet. What does it take to get there? Once they are intelligent and wise, they are angels for the first time. In fact, something that has surprised me, then they no longer look like children, but like adults, because they no longer have a childlike nature, but a more grown-up angelic nature. This goes with intelligence and wisdom.
So it seems like that's the spiritual body maturing. Like within our physical body, we have the spiritual body, as you were mentioning a moment ago, but how that is formed, how that develops and grows, is a function of our understanding. And so children have a childish understanding, as Paul says in one of the epistles. When I was a child, I understood as a child, I thought like a child, and so on.
Classic.
And then you grow up. So as their understanding and wisdom develop, and this is one of the great things about the Swedenborg situation, is that he's in that spiritual world while he's still here for long enough that he can see people grow up. He can, he's there for decades. He can see this.
Never thought about that.
Evolution with people. That's pretty cool. You don't get that on a kind of weekend near-death experience package deal,
Right. So he probably knew people who had died young and saw them grow and mature.
And the amazing thing is, when he goes back, they not only sound more grown up, they look different. They don't look like children. Their spiritual bodies have grown up, because that spiritual body is a picture of the state of your mind. So as the mind develops, and that's another big difference between that world and this world, which is here, yes, our body goes through changes and so on, but they're not anchored to, they don't perfectly reflect the state of our mind,
Yeah, I would think it's less age cohorts there and more it's individual timelines. That here you're gonna say I'm a reading a couple grade levels behind because my body's growing up, but my reading capacity is not there yet. But that's not the way it is there. It's like the mind and body grow together. I would imagine that angelic state, which is of course different for every person who grows up, every child who grows into it, but I imagine it would take different amounts of time to get there. So the two same, even though time is an illusion in the spiritual world because it's only states, but you could have if there was two people who had died on the same day, they wouldn't necessarily both reach angelhood at the same time.
No,
which is
right.
great, because you got it.
It is great.
People have their different, and of course, and the people have different destination they're getting to. Everyone's becoming a different kind of angel. So you're taking it's just like that. That's in life too. Isn't there this whole don't compare yourself? Comparison is the thief of joy.
That's right.
Because you got a different endpoint than everybody else.
Yeah.
There's an eternal. You can know what your life is doing is shaping you to be some kind of angel that will be a particular kind of useful, beloved, helpful part of the human race forever, and you'll derive great happiness from that. But you don't know exactly who it is you're trying to become or what you're trying to turn into. So trust the process. We'll take you there.
It reminds me of that great line from Bonnie Raitt where she says, "Where you've been is not where I'm going."
Reminds me of my thoughts are not your thoughts.
Yeah.
Where you've been is not. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
The reason children look more grown up as they are perfected in intelligence and wisdom, that is, like adolescents and young adults, is that intelligence and wisdom are the essential spiritual food. So the things that nourish their minds also nourish their bodies.
Oh, that's so great.
Which is a result of correspondence, since the form of the body is nothing but an outward form of their inner natures. It does need to be known that children in heaven do not grow up beyond the prime of youth, but remain at that age forever.
Yeah. So you don't do old age or what? That's not on their menu.
Right.
Yeah.
Again, there's a system to it. It might just seem like Swedenborg would just be saying, or the way it is in the afterlife is just anything you want, anytime. Like just make something that's as cushy as it can be. So there's not really any structure. It's just so of course, yeah, you get bigger as you grow, but there's a system. Just like here, why do children's bodies grow? If you could somehow view it with a microscope, you would see the food that they eat gets broken into these little tiny particles, and those go out and are the building blocks that new cells can form, and that all divides, and that's how there's a system and an order to it that's happening in the spiritual world. The growth there is not just generalized and mythical. Those things they're learning, that are developing their mind, that's actually that's the substance that the spiritual body is composed of. So it grows from, you could look in and see somehow those concepts are actually the things that are filling in the spiritual body as it grows.
And it's kind of interesting to me all of a sudden why, like in the case physically with both humans and animals, there's a certain kind of foreordained size. Sometimes something goes wrong with your pituitary gland or something like that. But generally speaking, yes, you're going to grow up, and then you'll stop. You'll keep developing mentally and emotionally, but physically, you're done. Trees don't have that. They'll keep growing. They keep growing in girth. They keep growing in height if they have the resources. But curious to think that that's a spiritual characteristic too. That we get to a certain age, quote unquote, spiritually. And then, okay, you're full grown. That's curious to me.
Interesting that you would mention trees, because, well, yes, the spiritual body gets to a certain age, and actually, it wobbles to find that wherever you come in. Swedenborg talks about people who had died old, and that their spirit initially looks like their body did here, but then it ages back. Benjamin Buttons ages backwards to that age. So there's a
which is amazing.
There's a state that you get into, and that again the prime of youth corresponds to this state of full love and wisdom. So that's there. However, Swedenborg goes to great lengths to assure us that the growth in intelligence and wisdom of angels, so the learning and growing and becoming better, goes on to eternity. Yeah. That life would lose all its joy. Just like we said that heaven continually needs new people coming in.
Yeah.
Any individual life continually needs new things coming in, or there would never be, you wouldn't have the kind of happiness.
The fact that he just said a moment ago that knowledge and wisdom are food. They're food for your spirit.
Yes, right.
To think that you would get to a point where, no, I don't really want to know anything else.
Okay.
Would be like saying, I think I'll just stop eating and never eat again.
So you had mentioned the tree, back to the tree. That tree keeps growing forever, unlike human being. Well, what does a tree corresponds to? The human mind.
Yes, that's right.
All over, he'll say that's just like what in the Bible, he'll be like a tree planted by the waters.
That's right.
The cedars of Lebanon.
When that person has his vision healed, he first sees people as trees walking, and that's the correspondence.
Swedenborg will say that, look, tree is like the growth of the mind, that you can actually, if you want to know how you grow and develop spiritually, go look at a tree. Look at how it grows from a seed into a sapling, then up into a mature tree, and finally produces flowers and then fruit that is just like you. And the tree never stops growing. The tree never, and he'll even go.
And it creates more tree,
He'll take it to that next level where he says, like, the growth in you is like one tree that grows up and then starts to spread seeds, and those grow up and it becomes an entire forest. So, yes, you don't keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger with your spiritual body, but your mind keeps growing forever.
Yes, absolutely. Essential idea. And it's not this frozen, static, to me, kind of vaguely terrifying image of just playing a harp forever or something, sitting on a cloud.
Yeah.
No, it's a very dynamic world of growth and new opportunities, new situations developing.
I would think heaven is like, you picture the times when you have been most happy to be alive. I do think a lot of people have like Christmas morning when they're kids.
Yeah, that's right.
I remember once there was a guy that I worked with, long ago at a different job, that had a near-death experience. And I was asking him, what was the best part about it? And he was like, being in the light, for sure. So this is people who encounter, I don't know if you would use the word God, but that's generally, so the light is, somebody who loves you and like made you. And he said, being in the light, that was like Christmas morning plus all the times I've been in love, like all jacked up to 1,000,000. So I do think, so let's say, I'm just trying to think of when were you most happy to be like Christmas morning when you're a kid, something good is going on. I don't know, like whatever these great times in your life, or let's say your work is hitting a really good stride and you're like, I'm excited about this, or you got something you're doing. That heaven is like that, I think, is growing more and more into like, I'm so glad to be here. I'm so glad that I'm here. I think that's what heaven is. I'm so glad that I'm here. And with everything, like I'm not feeling bored. I'm just feeling excited to be here. I would think that's the underlying. Heaven, of course, is like it's just a life that it's got all the variations of life. Swedenborg talks about it can't be the same thing over and over, but it's a life that you are increasingly happy to have. You're glad that you have it.
And how wild to think of living in a world where you might not see somebody for 1,000 years, and then you see them again, and they look younger than the last time
you're looking well.
You saw them. Yeah. And why do they look younger? It's because they're happier. I'm not saying there's no happiness in old age or whatever, but you're more at the center of yourself. You're more on your game, like everything's more coherent in your spirit or whatever.
Let's talk about the different kinds of innocence.
Okay, yeah, that's always fun.
I find this fascinating because it's what we're supposed to be trying to do in life.
And who else talks about different kinds of innocence?
It's all psychological.
Who's covering that?
It's all psychological. But yeah, I know. So these children are innocent. I mean, we get the idea of innocence from childhood.
Yes.
Childhood innocence, right?
That's right.
We don't even know. It's hard to define exactly what it is. Swedenborg does offer his own definitions, but in general, what is it? I don't know, but everyone knows it when they see it.
Yeah.
But that's not where they stay. Even children in heaven don't stay in this. There's a different kind of innocence that they move toward. Children's innocence, though, is not real innocence because it still lacks wisdom. So even that thing that we all we derive the concept from, it's still missing something.
You think they're the definition of innocence,
right?
No, they've just got kind of a downgraded version of it.
Real innocence is wisdom because to the extent that we are wise, we want to be led by the Lord. Or what amounts to the same thing, to the extent that we love being led by the Lord, we are wise. So children are brought through from the outward innocence that characterizes them at first, which is called the innocence of infancy, to the inner innocence that is the innocence of wisdom. This latter innocence is the goal of their whole process of instruction.
Wow. So something that takes decades and decades in this world to go from that one innocence to the other innocence. He doesn't put a time frame on it, but it's interesting to think that that's where we're going. That's the actual goal. You think, the goal of education, is to get to the point where people can be functioning members of society, or
right.
give something back and be useful contributors. And sure, but it's interesting to think, no, we're holding out for that innocence of wisdom. That's the actual goal.
Consequently, when they arrive at the innocence of wisdom, the innocence of infancy that had served them as a matrix in the interim is united to them. Oh,
so they get to keep it.
They've
got it's been filled in with, it's got a soul, or it's got something within it.
This is fascinating to me because, the process goes on in people in the world. Like I think of my grandmother. There's people who get quite old, but have this like playful fun about them. And just in general, like, old people say so many funny things. Just there's this innocence of wisdom that gets, as your body gets more childlike, and you need help getting from place to place. You're slow. You take it less seriously because it's always causing you problems. There's this sort of innocence to it. There's this playfulness, and that's the sort of return of childhood. But the difference is we're wise to the extent that we want to be led by the Lord, that we love being led by the Lord. So there'd be a lot that you could possibly try to unpack about that phrase, to be led by the Lord. I mean, that's something you really got to try to understand. What do you mean, be led by the Lord? I'd love to hear your thoughts on what that is. Let me give you a little bit of mine.
Yeah, please.
So being led by the Lord, well, I feel like there's sort of two sides to it. And I don't know exactly how they match up with each other. But I think one is that being led by the Lord's providence. I think there's something to, like, I've heard people who I feel like were in a pretty good state about being in the stream of providence. And they would say, I remember somebody saying, like, okay, Lord, you want me to go and do this talk? Like, I'll go to the airport, but you got to get me there. You got to tell me what to say, and you're running my life. I mean, people will say, like, give it up to God. I trust that you'll do what you need to do. I trust you're gonna direct life, and it's all gonna turn out well. And so there's kind of a relinquishing of our desire to control life and our tight grasping. That it's sort of like with Buddhism, the attachment is the root of suffering. So this is not disattached, like, who cares? I don't care about any, not nihilism, but it's this belief that basically God is my parent and I'll just trust my parents, So I think that's one side to it. And maybe that's the one that's more appropriate here. The other side is to be led by the Lord. The Lord is the love for the human race. So you're led by love, like when the desire to help is what is dictating your life, as opposed to the desire to look out for yourself. So those are my two thoughts about led by the Lord. That's
very, very good. And initially, when I hear about being led by the Lord, it sounds religious, obviously. But it sounds like sort of
you got the Lord in there.
It sounds a little more serious, like you're making an effort, and you're making a prayerful effort to follow the right path, and those are all very good things. But I do think there's something when you were just talking about, because it's so true, that people talk about a second childhood in old age, and that you see people that Swedenborg explicitly associates it with a playfulness, and that's so interesting, because there's something fun about, you just see something, like, that strikes you as funny, or didn't expect this, and even gets to that idea that the toys are alive, all that sort of thing that we were talking about, where you're small in the universe. You're not you're not working on your 15-year strategic plan or something. I don't know. I'm not knocking that, but somehow it does feel more like you're in the moment, and then you're seeing things that happen, and think, that's hilarious, or there's a sweet person. Oh, you look sad, and
yes,
and you're like connecting with people. Yeah, it's spontaneous. And Swedenborg talks about how much the angels live in the present moment, which is so interesting.
They do.
Yeah.
You know what's crazy? He says elsewhere, I hope people watching this will follow this digression into the nature of innocence, even though this is a show about the children in heaven. You can always skip ahead, but I feel like this is what the children are turning into.
Yeah.
Angels don't want to know the future.
Yeah.
Doesn't, maybe not in a crystal ball sense, but you want to know where things are going so often. Angels don't. Angels don't want to know the future. They live in the present moment, even though they can have better foresight than we can have.
Yeah.
So that's an aspect of innocence.
Yes, that's right. And it feels so much like, wow, the reason I want to know the future is I want to be able to protect myself. I want to position myself well for what's coming. I, want to avoid this negative outcome, and I want to provide for this good thing, or I want to achieve this, and there's somewhere I want to go. And it's interesting that there's something more about the Lord inside the angels and the angels in the Lord, where they've come to trust. And I know people in my life who are like this, who just seem to trust. Bad things happen to them, as they happen to everybody, but they just seem to kind of have a good spirit about it. Like,
yeah.
Okay.
Right.
Well, maybe this has a silver lining to it, or something.
So I think
they're sort of floating along, and they're doing okay.
That's the difference. Is you could have everything's fine if nothing bad has happened to you.
Yes.
But to have had, and by the time you get to old age, most likely there's been quite a number of things.
Yeah.
But to say like, no, everything's okay. Everything's going to work out all right. I trust that God is taking care of this and taking care of me, and it's going to wind up okay in the end. That's innocence of wisdom, because it's
innocence
chosen.
Of wisdom.
It's chosen.
Right. And you've seen things. The child is innocent because it doesn't know all the bad things that could happen.
Right.
It lacks imagination or something. But in adult life, you say, oh no, this could go wrong, that could go wrong. But then you realize, yeah, but it always seems to, there's something fundamentally okay about it, that it works out okay. Mm-hmm. Hard to even put into words, but there's just there's a sense that I think is partly for the angels, a sense of, well, I'm loved. I love the Lord. I'm loved. I love other people. So what can they do to me? Take away my birthday?
Yeah. Well, and it's all leading somewhere good. It's all leading somewhere good.
So you there's a trust. The trust is another word, isn't it?
Two things come to mind. One is, you said, like, less angling for, I want to make sure this turns out well for me. Particularly, there's an abandonment of like the project to try to engineer your own standing in the world. Yeah. Your status. Not that you wouldn't refuse if there was a great responsibility that came your way, that we take this high position here and do this. It's not like, no, I'm too innocent for that. But you're not concerned with the ego rat race, because you believe that actually the Lord is everything, and all you really want is for the Lord to get to do what he needs to do to help the human race. You're not really concerned about your standing in it. You consider yourself, basically, right. I'm not, compared to everyone in the world, I'm like nothing. Like, the Lord is everything. Let's get everyone to be happy. So there's that side of it. And then there's also this famous quote, I guess, to Swedenborg lovers, it's famous: peace has in it confidence in the Lord. Yeah. That he provides all things, leads all things, provides all things, and directs all things to a good end, or something like that.
And everything that happens in the meanwhile is contributing to that good outcome. Yeah, that's right.
That is
even if you can't see it. So it is a bit of a trust fall. But after you've been through it a bunch in the course of your life, you start to see, it always does work out somehow. Not that there aren't tragic things that happen.
Yeah.
But there's a goodness behind it all.
So that's the innocence of wisdom. And the education in heaven is to get people into the innocence of wisdom.
Yeah, I never saw that before for some reason. I didn't realize that's.
So I never saw that. The innocence of wisdom, that is what it is to be an angel. And so the difference What's the difference between you and an angel? Not you. What's the difference between me and an angel? Angels trust the Lord completely. And want only to help the Lord do what he wants to do out of love for the human race, because they know that that's what's the best for the human race. So that's, if you want to say what's an angel, that's an angel, right? I mean, that, you know, that's pretty good.
I saw a great show the other night. It's been around for a while, but I guess it's just prominent on Netflix right now, called The Intern. And it's this person who's 70 years old, I think, who becomes an intern. and
that's not at Google, is it?
He's such a angel in this company. He's willing to, he doesn't have like this big pride of like, well, no, I'm not going to drive your kid. Sure, I'll drive your kid, you know, whatever you need. If you need me over here, I'll be over here. If you need me over here, I'll be there. I want to help in every way that I can. He also had this great quality of sort of seeing who the boss is, like what's going on, and seeing what's good for her and stuff like that. It's just, it's great. It's really nice to see a whole movie of somebody who's just like got this humble servant attitude, and he just ends up blessing the people he's sitting next to, and everybody in the whole movie gets something good out of this guy because he's just got this great attitude. He's selfless.
I think that what I was thinking of at Google is called The Internship, and it's like with Owen Wilson, the comedy movie. Didn't sound, I don't remember if I watched it or just saw some of it, but it would not, I don't think, as heartwarming as what you're talking about.
Yeah,
is it in the movie?
Robert De Niro and Anne Hathaway, and it's just, I think it's trending right now. I mean, by the time people see this show, it'll be.
I got to get on that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's exactly
it's
right.
cool.
So there you have somebody, so there you see the power of the innocence of wisdom, which is that, yeah, well, who knows if he could have risen up the ranks faster, but the whole company worked better because of him.
Yeah.
And if you start to think about the people who are out there trying to solve the really tough challenges that are facing the human race, you really hope just get your ego out of the way, and let's have the good thing be accomplished, because people are depending on you to do that. You need to have that innocence of wisdom. God will put you where you need to go. Just like, let's get it done. Let's get the work done. It's kind of like I always think of, and then we'll get right back to these quotes. I know everyone's like, come on, read some more quotes. I don't know. I can't tell when they show if people are hoping for the quotes or dreading them. I guess it's like it's a frying pan in the fire. It's either you're having to hear Swedenborg being read, or you have to hear Curtis and Jonathan talking. It's like no good options.
No. But at some point it comes to an end.
What was I about to say? It was like,
it was good. I remember that.
Oh well. C'est la vie. Oh yeah, because we're talking about the innocence of wisdom and the innocence of ignorance. That's like super cool. Okay, they are next. There's a little this is a lesson that's in contrast with the other lessons that we've learned. Everything kind of had a certain feel to it. There's a little bit of an edge to this one.
Okay.
This is Heaven and Hell 343. Several times a number of children have been with me in groups before they had learned to talk at all. They made a soft, formless sound, as though they were not yet able to act together the way they would when they were older. What surprised me was that the spirits who were with me could not keep from trying to get them to talk. This kind of impulse is innate in spirits. You know, like
haven't you seen that
at Thanksgiving? Like, hey, come here, say this to me. It's like the relative they barely know.
Poking around with the kid and trying to get the kid to. Yeah, that's right. Gonna smile for me, or is it? Yeah, right.
Yeah. Every time though, I noticed that the children resisted, not wanting to talk like that. I often picked up a reluctance, a distaste that had a kind of resentment in it. Once they did have some power of speech, all they said was, "That isn't so." I was told that this is a kind of testing of the children, not only to accustom and introduce them to resisting whatever is false and evil, but to keep them from thinking or speaking or acting at the bidding of someone else, so that they will not let themselves be led by anyone but the Lord.
Well, it seems like that's alive and well in the 2-year-old population, don't you think? It's that sort of, no.
Yeah.
I was always amazed that if you ask a child, would you like some yogurt? They've never heard of yogurt. They've never experienced it.
No.
They don't know what it is. No. You're certain about it? Absolutely. You're right.
And then they try it and love it. Yeah.
And it's so great to know that there again, there's a developmental, it's annoying for parents when you're dealing with kids who are saying no to every single thing you say. But how important for their development. It's amazing that this little creature who's like a quarter the size of you is able to stand up to you. You have the power of life and death over this kid, and they don't just say, I'm not doing it.
Yeah.
And you're a bad dad.
And I'm gonna flop, and I'm gonna yell, and
or even you're carrying them,
Yeah,
and they
and
try
I'm
to
gonna
dive headfirst out of your arms.
Stiff back. Yeah.
I would rather dash myself on the floor.
That's exactly right. That they're just like, I'm going to do this fling thing that they would be the one who suffered if it worked, but you're the one who has to stop them.
That's right. But that has such an important developmental, what a basic thing.
Yeah.
To show, okay, we're following the Lord, and we're not getting shoved around by these adults who can't resist going, oh, coochie coo,
Yeah, that would you think that the education in heaven for children who had died and are being raised in heaven, part of it would be setting boundaries.
Yeah.
And it's not like you're never going to encounter anything negative. Here, they're having to, he's at a kind of testing. So he talks a lot about spiritual trials or tests or temptations, which is something that we go through either in this world or the next, that are very uncomfortable. But there are these periods of intense growth, and I guess you go through little ones. Jesus Christ was going through them his whole life.
Big time. That's right.
And it is the way from which you are separated from evil, develop a distaste from evil, and ultimately come to realize your dependence on God. Swedenborg said that he had these intense experiences during his journal of dreams, and he said that it came to me that I just had to cast my cares on the Lord like a little child.
There it is again. Yeah, that's right.
That was, and he would just pray for save me. This is a guy with a lot of pride and a lot of fancy
reputation,
clothes, but he's reduced into a place where the Lord becomes everything to him, and the hell that usually kind of runs us, the negativity, the ego, that I'm gonna run everything. It's like the hitting rock bottom. Is when you get to a point where in 12 steps, which a lot of people say there may be links between Swedenborg and 12 steps.
That's right.
The first one is like, or one right in the beginning there. It's my life is unmanageable.
Yeah,
I have this thing in my life I'm powerless. There's a power greater than me that can do it. So here is a teeny little version of that for these kids. Like, nope, nobody but God is going to tell me what to do.
Yeah, and it's interesting that in Swedenborg says that you have to be grown up. You have to be an adult to go through spiritual crises, temptations, various different ways that it's been translated. And yet here you have children in the spiritual world who are already going through that kind of test. Just as a side note, I'm also really interested to think about Swedenborg having this whole, I don't remember that image, he's got this whole group of kids who are so young with him that they're not even sort of articulating yet. They're just, they're kind of humming over there or something. And then he's got these other spirits with him, and those spirits can't resist interacting with the kids. They want to just... they want to interact with them, and then the kids are having, no, stop, that's not right.
And somehow this is part of the lessons the kids are going through. Like, it's not just Swedenborg happened by. Somehow, because he said this was happening so that they could resist. Like, it's part of the curriculum.
Yep.
The divine curriculum.
Yep. Very important element.
So you have a lesson there where you're having to, even in heaven, learn a little bit to resist evil, because there's that too. So Swedenborg goes on to talk about how even though if you die in the innocence of childhood, you still have a dark side to confront.
True, and not just externally. Right?
That's right. I have talked with angels about children, wondering whether they were free from evils because they did not have any realized evil the way adults do. Meaning, we all have tendencies to do bad things,
Sure.
but you're not liable for anything until you get old enough that you really know what you're doing. So some of us, all of us basically, as we get older, there's different kinds of things that are evil and harmful that we engage in, and those become more of a part of us, and then you have to get rid of them through regeneration. But kids haven't done any of that, so that's what I was wondering. I was told, though, that they are equally involved in evil. However, they, like all angels, are withheld from their evils by the Lord and kept focused on what is good to the point that it seems to them as though they were focused on what is good of their own accord. So to prevent children from having a false notion about themselves after they have grown up in heaven, a belief that the good that surrounds them is from them and not from the Lord, they are let back into their hereditary evils from time to time and left in them until they know and recognize and believe the way things really are. There was one individual who had died in infancy and grown up in heaven who had this kind of opinion. He was the son of a particular king, so he was let back into his own innate life of evil. So this is somebody from I would have guessed like the Swedish royalty or somebody Swedenborg knew.
Royal family and child died, and yep.
I could tell then from the aura of his life that he had a drive to lord it over others and regarded adultery as of no concern whatever. Evils that were part of his heredity from his parents. Once he recognized that he was like this, though, he was again accepted among the angels he had been with before. So it's just to keep you from getting stuck up, because it's like if you're like born rich, you might think, look at me, like I'm so great. Look how good my life is. Everyone else who's not like me, why isn't your life as good as me? If you fall on some hard times, then you could get this true sense of like, oh, but for the grace of God, there go I. So if you're raised in heaven, isn't there going to be the possibility that you're still like, what's with all these people and they're like going and being evil and having problems? Why did I don't do that. I've never done that in my life. All I did was look at these little representations.
I wouldn't even think of it.
So another part of the innocence of wisdom is that you believe that the Lord has all the goodness and that you yourself are not better than anyone else.
That's right. Such a fundamental thing that Swedenborg says. He often says things like that coming to that sort of sanity, at some point, doesn't he say, it's coming to the sanity of realizing you're the worst of people and that kind of thing. And so if you've grown up with these angelic, heavenly, everything's been so great, then you start to think, my life is good because I am good. And so let's take some time to look into that. So isn't that amazing that even though you didn't have that experience of growing up in this world, you still get to find there are ways to teach people. Because one of the humbling things about being a human is just trying these crazy things and realizing, oh my gosh, there's some dark stuff in there.
The reason grown-up children are let back into the state of their hereditary evil is not to punish them. It is to make sure that they know that on their own they are nothing but evil, and that they are born from hell into heaven by the Lord's mercy. That they are in heaven not because they deserve it, but as a gift from the Lord. So why would you want someone to know that? This prevents them from inflating themselves above others because of the good that attends them. For this is in opposition to the blessings of mutual love, just as it is against the truth of faith.
Yeah, so I think that's another very helpful point about the innocence of wisdom, is that sense that these things come from the Lord. It's by the grace of God, as people say. That when you realize, oh no, left to my own devices, I'm awful in this way and that way and the other way. And so if I'm experiencing this wonderful life of compassion and helping people and healing or whatever it is, it's only because the Lord is so good and so wonderful. And that's actually, although people resist that, we all have a nature that resists that. It's actually the happiest. I heard that wonderful talk you gave in Florida about humility and usefulness. Like, the humility is a really important part of that. That you're not as happy when you're full of yourself and thinking, and especially that detail. Didn't it say something about how you're kind of lording it over other people, or at least you feel superior?
Well, you know why?
Yeah, that's not. Angels don't have it like that.
Yeah, and that's because God doesn't have it like that.
That's right.
I'm not inside the mind of God, but from how Swedenborg describes what he learned about the divine love, is that the divine love doesn't want anything for itself. It has no selfishness and doesn't want any praise or any recognition. God could absolutely rightfully say, look at this, I'm like, one of these things is not like the other. There's all these people, and then there's me, and I got it really going on good.
The one being that could justifiably
come on, let's just call it.
Go down that road.
If you got it, flaunt it. Call a spade a spade. I'm awesome. But that's not the happiness that God has. It doesn't want it. Swedenborg says at some point that it doesn't want anything to be anything, but
even wants to be anything,
but wants that everyone else should be something.
Yeah.
So if it's good enough for God, it's good enough for you. Let's finish today by talking about the difference between the state of people who die as children and go through this process we're talking about, and then the state of us when we cross over.
That's been hanging around the edges of this conversation. Yeah.
People who die as adults have a plane acquired from the earthly material world, and they take it with them. This plane is their memory and its natural physical sensitivity. This stays fixed and then goes dormant, but it still serves their thought after death as an outmost plane because their thinking flows into it. This is why the nature of this plane and the way their rational activity answers to its contents, determines the nature of the individual after death. People who have died in childhood and have been raised in heaven, though, do not have this kind of plane. They have a natural spiritual plane because they bring with them nothing from the material world or their earthly bodies. This means that they cannot be engrossed in such crude affections and consequent thoughts. They actually derive everything from heaven. Different kinds of minds.
There's that. His word plane, plane, is very interesting, and the fact that he links it just sheerly to our experience. I've wondered how it is to not live long in this world and then go to the other world. How do you perceive things? Because Swedenborg says so much of our experience there is based on our sensory. Have you seen? Have you lived long enough in this world where you okay, that's a very heavy object. This is very light. Oh, that's liquid. This, you're just experiencing the physical world and sensing it and building up these memories of seeing this situation. Oh, well, that situation, this was good, that was bad. But it's building up something that you lack when you die early like that. You don't have as much of it.
Yeah.
So they have a spiritual natural, or something. Didn't he say something like that? They have some spiritual version of it, but it's that might get to why not have everybody just, there's lots of reasons, but why not just harvest everybody when they're 3 or something, because then everybody would go to heaven.
But you wouldn't have all the right kind of people. You wouldn't be able to make the heaven thing work. However, if in case you're listening to how great the education and life of children in heaven is, and in the state that gets them into, where they say they derive everything from heaven instead of from the natural plane, and you feel like, man, come on, I'm never going to get there. Look at that.
I've thought it many times.
Good news.
With my little brother, I've just thought, he's just ahead of me. I'm not, it's like I can't compete.
Good news, Jonathan. Heaven and Hell 345, our last number for the day. However, the state of people who have grown up on earth can become just as perfect as the state of children who have grown up in heaven if they move away from their physical and earthly loves, love for themselves and love for the world, and accept spiritual loves in their stead.
Wow. That seems like a high bar. It's hard to imagine.
You'll get it. You got it.
Keep working on it.
Well, and it's just start making progress there.
But it's a beautiful, it's a beautiful, it's a hopeful thing to think that, no, you really can be, even though you walk through, I think it's kind of in the idea of the foot washing, that you walk through this, in many ways, filthy world, you know? But the Lord can wash that off. You can, as they say, come out clean on the other side. And the Lord knows how to purify us, and the Lord can make us clean, even though we've been through this world and experienced things.
The goal of divine providence is a heaven from the human race. So that's principle number one. We get that from Swedenborg. The goal of divine providence being what runs everything. So the goal of how God runs everything, including why everything is made in the way, the point of everything is heaven from the human race. So what's the function of the physical world and the lives that we live in it? It's to create angels.
Yeah.
It's meant to be an angel creation factory. So divine providence has infinite resources and has infinite energy. So it's going to be able to accomplish its goal of making this into an effective way to create a heaven from the human race. And that tamps down. There's no less of God's attention on the individual as there is of the whole, because there's infinite attention from God, which is crazy, but like, whoa, somehow that's what infinity is.
That's a great way to put it.
So yeah, God is going to make it so your life, absolutely. What's the point? What do you think I've been doing?
Yeah.
What do you think I've been doing this whole time?
What do you think all this was about?
Like do you see what's on my above my doorway, which is like heaven from the human race, which in your case would be Angel Jonathan Rose. That's it. That's what I'm doing. So, like, do you think I'm taking days off? Do you think I'm at the beach? You think I don't know?
You think I'm bad at it?
I designed this system, you know. So I think that is what Swedenborg's trying to communicate there. It's like, look, you can get there, and God has every intent of getting you there. Won't force you farther than you're interested in going.
Yeah.
But is always going to be kind of leaning in to like receive this.
That's right. Pressing to be received. And I've had this thought before, but it's really stronger in me after doing this show with you, that the moment of your physical death, you know, that's a huge transition. It's quite seamless for the individual from what Swedenborg describes, but it's still a big transition. You don't have the flesh anymore, so you're in this spiritual world. And yet where that happens, you know, for my brother, it happened when he was 2 hours old. My father was 93, you know, and so it can happen at any point in there. But what I really felt from today was wherever that happens, the Lord's got you, you know, and you will just continue to go through this. It's a process. It's working us, not the other way around, and it will continue to work you wherever you are when you cross over.
Swedenborg wrote somewhere, so one life continues into the next, and death is only a passage. And what we saw here today is that's true, even maybe especially for children who die. So even though the rest of us go through all kinds of grief, you can't not when you love someone, and when you thought you'd spend so long with them, and you can't not have that grief. But for them, for the child, like right there today, you'll be with me in paradise.
Yep,
right there, and not, things don't stop. Their life doesn't stop. They still have a next thing they're doing and next thing they're doing. Yep. And by the time you see them, they're going to have this great heavenly nature, and you're going to have your earthly heavenly nature, and they're going to complement each other, and everything's going to be great. So thanks, Jonathan, for having this conversation. Thanks, everyone, for sticking with us. Don't forget to like the video, leave us a comment. That helps the next person see it. And you never know. People often, when people are dealing with a loss or something, they'll be searching for content, and this could be something in this video is what they're looking for right then. So you help supporting us by watching this video and liking it and sharing it. Could mean something to someone. So we hope it does. I hope it meant something to you. Thanks for watching.